I do. Lance, I want to look into the future a little bit, not too far, but after games this year, win or lose, I wonder what you want to sit in here and tell us, hey, that's what kind of team we are. That's where we hang our hat every day, every game, and you know, I guess it's an identity question, but.
Yeah, that's good. It's a really good question. I think you want to be physical and, you know, on both sides of the ball within the, you know, especially in the trenches. You want to be a team that discipline and executes in a way that I think we, you know, showed flashes of last year. And I think what you're looking to look at is one that's not going to beat itself, and play consistently and consistently hard through the game, giving itself a chance to win in the fourth quarter. And that's a pretty simplistic answer, but I think that's where it's at. We talked about, you know, progression here, progression there, but now you got to find a way to take another step, and that's you know, hopefully we'll see that and see it on a regular basis.
Has that been a thing for you always? I mean, throughout your coaching career, a lot of coaches will say, right, we're defensive minded, or we want our offense to dictate, or whatever. What's been yours throughout your career?
Yeah, just consistency. In fact, we met with our leadership group this morning, Coach Gildersleeve and I told him to talk about some of those things. And I said, guys, just so you know, the day that we sit at 9-0, it's going to be the same intensity it was if we were 1-8. I said a couple guys in that room, maybe Rich Miller and Mike Nowitzki can attest. I said, you know, my expectations and intensity will be the same if we're down by 30 or up by 30. And I said that, and that's a consistency that we want within the program. And so we're not going to let those things dictate our, you know, our emotions, our attitude, and our effort level. Mm-hmm. And I think for us to build this correctly, for the consistency and over the long haul, that has to be at the forefront. And I would say that's probably been the way I've gone about it for 15 plus years now. Probably to a fault at times that in the early days I probably didn't enjoy enough of it, but it was because we're going to keep going, because now the expectations are. So I think that's kind of in our DNA, and that's where we want it to be.
Coach Simpson mentioned the other day that Rich Miller is sort of the heart of what you guys do as a defense. I mean, do you see that, and just how you felt about how Rich has sort of assumed the leadership role with this group?
Yeah, I mean, like I think I've said it here before, you know, when Rich entered the transfer portal and we said, you know, Rich didn't start at Buffalo, and probably would have been in another rotational situation there if he had stayed. So when he came, it was all those things that Chris is kind of alluding to about him, and it's off the field how he goes about it, but he's a guy that knows all three linebacker spots. He knows the defense, he knows the expectation of how we practice, how we go about it, how we're going to take care of our business, all those things. So when he says that, and then, you know, his voice and his consistency on what he does and the expectation that he puts on others as well as himself is really part of that standard we're striving for.
To build on that a little bit, we've talked about how he's gotten some of his friends here and played for the program from Detroit, but for him to be willing to do that is not necessarily a reflection of the school, because he's only been here for 1 year. It's a reflection of you guys. How much does that resonate with you that he vouches for you guys?
It means a ton. It means a ton. And, you know, and you could probably say this, you know, similar about Mike and Trevor and some of them, because it's, you know, when you go into things, especially the way, you know, some of the ways that they went about it, it's about trust and faith of how things are going to work out. But they also, it's because, you know, any of us can do that. Where we can be comfortable is when you walk in each day, you have an idea, and that's the part of the next step for us is when guys walk in now, they know the routine and the expectation. And I say it a lot of times to farmers, you know, and it may be firm and it might, you know, might have a little bite to it, but then I'll say fair, and then they'll, and I say if it's not, tell me. But I think when they know, so when you talk about Rich and where he came in, he's going to say, you know, how he believes and why, and And that can go to, the same thing as parents felt, because they've known, really it starts with Chris Simpson right there and the job that he's done at that position, but also the outstanding job I think he's done recruiting in Detroit and Michigan for us.
We spent a lot of time talking about a lot of the newcomers, the transfers, JUCO guys.
Mhm.
How have you seen the guys that got recruited over, like Daniel Highshaw, Tywin Berryhill? Have you seen them kind of respond to those newcomers?
Yeah, and how did you refer to that, as recruited?
Recruited over?
Oh, why would you say recruited over, if I may ask? Because nobody got recruited over. Guys got recruited to help make this roster better. I want to make sure we understand that, okay? And when those guys are recruited, they're coming in here to compete. And nobody was promised anything. And right now, Daniel Highshaw is more than holding his own. Okay, Daniel Highshaw just wasn't healthy last year, and there's times where, we really had no complete idea what he would be. Okay, again, I don't mean to be defensive. Okay, what I really mean by that is sometimes guys will go, we're going to take so many players at each position, so we should get lesser players, like guys that aren't as good as Kai Thomas, because we have Daniel Highshaw, or should we bring in another? I mean, premier programs in college football keep recruiting, right? And why wouldn't we do the same? But that honestly is, that's part of the mentality we have to keep changing inside our program and outside our program, because we have to keep bringing in players to compete and go about it. If you don't like competition, I don't know if Power 5 football is for you, or if college football in general. So I've believed in that, and I'll go back to being a Division III coach, and I kind of referred to that earlier. People ask like that, how do you sustain it? It's pretty simple. We had a roster limit. Everybody paid for their own way. It's all optional. How much work do you want to put in to get it done? Well, now we just move it up a bunch of notches here, and if you don't want to compete, that doesn't mean we don't believe in you. But you've got to be able to show that you can stay healthy, be dependable, reliable, and accountable to do the things we need to do. And I think Daniel's done an outstanding job. He's had as good a camp as anybody.
And I guess on that note, with the competition up and down the roster, how has that elevated either the depth or just the overall quality that you have?
Well, I think we're getting there. We went through a lot of things yesterday on our non-practice day as a staff, and we started talking about things and looking at how things are starting to fit together. We looked at if we were to get on a plane and go play, where we're at, and honestly, there were days a year ago we're sitting filling the X amount of slots at the end. The last 5 seats in the plane, we'll take some of the guys who've been practicing really hard and doing some things. Now, it's going to be pretty competitive for some guys that maybe even were in those roles, or a newcomer that thought it was going to happen sooner. It's going to be very competitive. So are we getting there? Yes, and I think our players, from what I've heard as well through Daniel and our communication staff, is I think our players are alluding that to you about the competitive nature of things a little bit more than maybe the past, which, especially where we are in camp, it forces you to be locked in. You better, when you show up here this afternoon for meetings, you better be paying attention. When we do walkthroughs in the evening, you better be locked in and making sure that you know your assignments and carried over to the installation to the next day. Because if not, somebody else that's going to be close in talent level is going to be there to take some of those reps and opportunities away if you're not. And that's how you get to build a program, in my estimation.
Hey, Lance, while we're on the running backs, I've got a question kind of along those lines. Other than the talent in the room, which you've talked about and we've talked a lot about throughout camp here, what are some ways or reasons you think the running game will be better or improved or a strength or whatever, however you want to put it this year?
Just holistically, I think about, you can start with our coaches and understanding a little bit about whether it be who we're playing against schematically. We can talk about experience and guys working together. We can talk about what we can do complementary wise off the run game with the pass game and vice versa. There's a lot of things holistically, and then experience within the group. And I think, you know, we have 5 running backs that have played now in Power 5 football games. And that makes it exciting and challenging and all those things. But, you know, now the thing is, you know, I was fortunate to coach running backs for 10 years, is that, you know, there's a rhythm to it as well. And that's the other part of this, that you just can't keep rotating until a guy gets a feel for things as well. And that again is going to be part of the balancing act. But I do think we're holistically better in a lot of areas. I think our tight ends are blocking better. I think our receivers have embraced things that we're doing that'll help us in the pass game, but embracing some of the roles that they have to do within the run game as well. And you put it all together, and I think you see better results.
Other questions?
Coach, Jared Casey's been on scholarship, but can you walk us through that decision?
I'm sorry?
Jared
To walk through it?
Yeah.
Well, I think he earned it, and you know, we did that last spring. You know, yeah, we called him in and had him FaceTime his parents and told him it was well deserved. And as we looked at it and through those, he had last semester paid for as well. And you know, this is me, and I don't try to do this too often, but when young men earn scholarships like that, it's twofold for me. One, I think that's really neat and well deserving, and I think I've tried to keep it in a good spot. But I also know there's a lot of other walk-ons that work extremely hard in our program that could be on the cusp or whatever, and I try to keep that in the back of my mind as well when we do that. The other part is I think sometimes that the awarding of a scholarship has taken away from the individual, and it becomes, you know, a scripted act of some sort. That's my opinion. Everybody can do what they want to do, but it's not about how the guy gets it and who told them and all of that. That it puts more light on other people than it does the young man who really got it, in my estimation, many times. So that's why we didn't have a bunch of cameras there when we did it, and you know, that's kind of where we went. Okay, I can also tell you, I know it has never been asked. I know the Jared Casey story is very special. Quentin Skinner is a walk-on. He's been on scholarship as well. So, I mean, there are some guys like that. So, I don't know, everybody see the races, who tweets it out the fastest, okay? But, you know, I've tried to balance that. But, you know, there's things in there that, I guess I could say for Jared's consistency, it isn't about catching one pass. You know, that's not why Jared earned a scholarship. And I think part of that went through his play the rest of the year. It went through where it was progressing in his role throughout spring practice. Okay, I guess that's part of it. So I can't remember, as we were wrapping up meetings after spring, I let Jared know multiple times that we're progressing in a way to be patient as he continues to be asked, and then, yeah, watched him have a very, very good moment. I think Andy Kolnicki's the only one that has it on film, so you'd have to talk to see what his price is to release that.
Lance, we talked a little bit about wide receivers, but we not really talked about Trevor at all. Just his growth and maturity over the past year plus since he's been here, plus beyond that. What have you seen from him?
I think Trevor Wilson's had a solid camp, and again, it's been because Trevor works extremely hard, and you know, I can't say he's had a lot of flashy big catches like maybe he did early last season, but that's fine, and I think that's part of his maturing process, is because I think in years past he'd be a little more frustrated, and he'd be wondering, and he'd be pressing. Now he's been very consistent in what he's doing and understanding it, and Trevor's going to help this football team a lot this year.
Coach, do you wish you could have an exhibition game against other schools like they do in almost every other sport, because of the fact the guys are probably sick of hitting each other and all that?
Yeah. Gary, that's a good question. I think I've had that somewhere asked before, but I don't know. Been in college football my whole career, so I've never. I know we're saying they've talked about whether you should do that in the spring, and then our competitive juices will get us to a point where the point of doing a preseason game to get things. I caught the end of the Chiefs game. I don't think Coach Reed lost sleep on that or anything. They got people evaluated, and you go. At Division III, boy, there's a lot of Division III references today, but we did have a scrimmage. And actually back when you could do 2-a-days, it was kind of a joint practice day, and yeah, it was good. It was good to go against somebody else and kind of evaluate yourself. I'm probably fine where it's at, though, to be honest, and the reason is, if you lost anybody, but injury-wise, you would feel terrible that way in an exhibition. So I like the fact that I guess we kick it off and get going. They all count.
Well, my last year, junior's been having a great camp in Cincinnati. What's it mean to have former Jayhawks succeed at the next level?
Oh, it's awesome, and it couldn't happen to a better guy, and how hard he's worked and his whole story, which many of you know better than I do. Very proud of him. It was interesting after the mini camps and all that early in, I think, or in May or whenever that was. Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow, his father Jimmy is a friend of my wife and I, and he sent me a text that that Kwame was doing really well, and he says, and Joe likes him. And he goes, and that'll be good. So, but I think the other thing with that was really good, that I think we're going to be able to kind of continue to use in our program is Andy Kolnicki had talked to Kwame as they were going through things even before the draft, and then after, as he's gone through some of these things, he talked about things we do in our offense, and he said having to know splits and alignments and motions and where to be when the ball snap versus lining up on the right, left side, inside or outside, definitely help prepare him to get to the next level. And again, you can talk to our current players about that, and of course we'll use that as we recruit young men across the country.
Hey Lance, what about special teams? What do you usually see from the kicking game in camp?
Yeah, we're starting to get to that point, John. We're going to put a little more together in unit stuff. It's hard to simulate all that. You got to really be careful on the running and the, really stress you're putting on it. But I've been very pleased, with our kickers. I thought our kickers today, we did a red zone period with field goals. We had our most consistent day. I think our return units, obviously we talked about Kwame. It's a good lead-in because, punt return will be a big area that we miss them. Luke Grimm and Devin Neal will probably be a couple guys back there that we feel very confident in moving forward in the punt return game. I think we know what Kenny Logan brings to us in the kickoff return game. Devin, Kai Thomas will also be involved as well as others. The way we've kind of broken up, I'm very happy the way Ty Woe has handled our coordination of our teams and kind of broke them back up those with lead coaches. But obviously we know how important they are. I'll never forget back when I was a grad assistant, and Coach Alvarez would always talk about that first weekend. You start watching all those games on different nights, or these ones on these 0 weeks, and where is special teams early in the season, and what factors those can play, because those are the harder ones to assimilate, and we've got to make sure we're good out of the gate.
With you guys bringing in some defensive backs and linebackers, will that give you some more depth?
Absolutely. Great question. Back to yesterday's conversation, we start talking about guys. We have a walk-on graduate transfer in Andrew Russell, who came from Michigan. And Andrew was somebody we recruited at Buffalo and then didn't go on. He was a lacrosse player, went to Michigan to play lacrosse. He was high school teammates with Mike Nowitzki. And he's played some special teams at Michigan. He gave up lacrosse and stuck to it. We have a guy like him competing, right now he might be some backups on some teams. Those are some body types we just didn't have enough of last year. You talked about the linebackers as well. The amount of guys there. Donovan Gaines is another walk-on linebacker that's been big in teams. Dylan Downing, but again, you look at the two deep of the other, just in our linebackers as well. It should be a more productive situation than where we're at a year ago. Same thing with all those running backs. They should be good special teams guys. And it's not in the point where we have to save snaps because they're always on the field. We can use a lot of these guys. Torrey Lachlan, Quentin Skinner have been some of our best special teams guys as well.
And it's even pretty complimentary of Jason in recent weeks. For him, in what ways has he improved, and what strides have you seen him make?
Decision making and accuracy, I think, are two. I think are probably the two biggest ones that I've seen, and I think he's continued to do that. And I think Jalen has played well here the last few practices as well. And I keep using those things, but it's totally different night and day than where we were a year ago as we were in the selection process.
Lance, maybe this is too abstract and too theoretical, but you talk about being multiple and having possibility of many running backs in the field at a time. Andy's talked about if you have 7 linemen who are worthy for some packages, getting them out there. Basketball has gone to kind of a positionless format. Do you think there's a way in football where maybe it is just a matter of getting the best other 6 guys on the field at some points, that maybe positions and designations and responsibilities don't matter so much?
Well, there's some of that, I think. I think that's a fair question. But you had 5 running backs out there, okay, you better make sure some can block, and you got to have some that can have some type of vertical, receiving ability, as well as some precision in route running and things like that aren't always just natural. And then you have to find ways to get these things practiced. But can there be some? Yeah, if that's what it takes. Because if not, then again, everybody's looking at, the uniqueness, I think, between, just say football and basketball is we set the ball and start a new play every time. It's not continual movement. So there's personnel, you look and see what personnel's out there, and then they make calls and adjustments off that right away. So, there's different things. So if you've got a bunch of running backs in there or a bunch of tight ends, vertical, there's certain things that are probably off the plate. And again, then all of a sudden you've got 9 and 10 man boxes. That makes it's pretty tough. But can you be multiple? Yes. And I think as we evolve, I think there's some very creative ways that Andy and the offensive staff will be able to do that.
I want to get your perspective on O.J. Burroughs. We talked about him at the end of spring as someone who really developed, but have you seen him grow even more, I guess, over the course of the summer, and what has he brought during fall camp?
I think we talked about last year the big step he made from the end of the season through spring and maturity and trying to change his body and all the things we challenged him. I think he's become a better run player. I think he's being physical. As I've said before, OJ's as good as any player I can remember in my time of breaking on a ball and reading things, and and I just think he's starting to feel more comfortable just as a player in our program, and when guys start playing and seeing things more and more, they're out there, they become stronger just physically, and then all of a sudden the game just starts slowing down, and hopefully those are going to be some things that he continues to evolve, because I think he has a bright future.
And then you mentioned Quentin Skinner going on scholarship. What has he brought to the wide receiver room?
Just a great work mentality. He's got the length and the speed that we're looking for. Again, when we got here, didn't know the complete story, or hurt. He was coming off a knee injury and probably stymied his recruiting some. But to get here and start working to get healthy, but he can do a lot of different things, and he's willing to block, he's willing to play special teams, but he also runs well enough, and with that, he's a longer striding guy that he can take the top off some things with us for us. I think him and Stephen McBride, Trevor give us give us, maybe a little better speed than people give us credit for.
Anything else?